conversations. Welcome everybody to the first of the WEConvene conversations. This is particularly for women who convene other women in the civic space. And I quite like the expression that someone introduced me to, is that WEConvene is effectively women doing for themselves what they mostly do for other women. Giving each other insight, giving each other connection, giving each other inspiration. Most of our lives is doing that for other women. This call is doing that for ourselves. Uttara and I are the crazy nuts who started this. Maria and Isata were pretty close on our heels following, and they both are part of this call. Isata will join us in a little while because she's making her way to us from Sierra Leone. And there are other women who are part of the sort of founding group, and they'll be on next month's call. This is the first of the calls. The calls will happen every month on the third Wednesday in the month. This first one we're treating as completely open. Everybody's welcome to join it. Absolutely delighted. From then on, they'll be really for people who've signed up to be part of the WeConvene group. And the WeConvene group is a private group inside LinkedIn that's attached off my profile. We've come up with a bit of a format for this first call. It's almost inevitable that it will be the wrong one and that it'll evolve and a better one will emerge when more people are involved in it. But loosely, our idea is to sort of go from global to community to individual. So global will start with Maria, and she'll tell us, she'll sort of span the horizon and say, around the world, these are the kinds of things that I can see going on, that if I were a local convener of women, I would want to know that's going on, either because I can connect to it or learn from it or even potentially get funding for it, but mostly the first two, no doubt. Those are the things up on the horizon, and Maria will do that once a month for us all, and we will love her for it. Then we'll go into community, and Uttara will talk about a project that she's spearheading in one of her villages and give us a deeper sense of what she's doing. We'll break, she'll talk a little bit about what she's doing, then we'll break for a couple of minutes so that you can put up lots of questions. We're asking you actually not to do chat at all up until then, because so many of these calls recently, it seems to me, are a mixture of, do you watch these people and really take in what they're saying, or do you watch the chat? So we're saying, don't put any chat on, but we will break at a particular moment and then inundate chat, lots of questions. Uttara will be the most unbelievably quick reader the world has ever seen, and will then answer some of them. And then at the end, we've asked Isata to just pause for a second and say, after 10 years worth of convening in my life, and actually she's done a lot more than 10 years, she's going to tell us one learning about leadership that she's learned the hard way and the story behind it. And then we'll finish. We will absolutely finish at 2, because conveners of women are very, very busy people and they cannot break from giving us an hour is about it. And so the pressure is on us, to be honest. We've got to do something that's so impressive, so interesting, so much insight, connection, and inspiration that unbelievably busy women will choose to come back on the third Wednesday in the month to do it again. So the first one is Maria. She's going to talk to us. Don't ask her any questions, but you can, once you've joined the WeConvene group, you can ask her all the questions in the world for information, and then everybody can see the answers. Then it's Uttara at the community level. Inundate her with questions at the moment when we shout, ask her questions. And then with Tata, you won't be able to ask her questions. We haven't got time for that. But on the WeConvene group, once you've joined it, make sure that you do what she's done. Write down some of the things that you've learned the hard way over the last 10 years about leadership, right? So we start. Maria, you're on.
I am on. Okay. Thank you for that. Hi, everybody. So I'm Maria Alia Di Pravda, and what am I doing here? I work for So we're a family foundation based in London, and we work to sort of build and strengthen local civil society structures in the Middle East. And we do that largely through supporting local CSOs to become more resilient and more impactful through organizational development. So throughout the years, we focused our interest on CSOs, civil society organizations that look at rights and representation. So organizations that work on building civic space and participation, on promoting free and independent media in the region, on gender justice, youth empowerment, and on access to learning in all its forms. And among the most exciting groups we've had the privilege of supporting, you will be unsurprised to learn, are those founded and led by women for women. So everyone here, we know that it takes women to convene women, especially in spaces that are traditionally held by men. It takes women to understand the challenges faced by women, discrimination, yes, violence, yes, but also inadequate mentoring, the lack of role models, the struggle to balance family life with, all the other lives that we seek to access. It takes women to come up with strategies to circumvent or even solve those challenges in a bid to increase women's participation in those spaces, right? In our schools, in our workplaces, in our civic spaces. We women, we have a right. We have a right to access and to own those spaces. Of course we do. But beyond that right, there's plenty of evidence out there that I'm sure you're all aware of that indicates that women's leadership, say in political spaces, from the grassroots up, can improve the processes themselves, leading to greater impact that benefits whole communities, not just women. For example, recently we saw in parts of India that women-led councils or areas with women-led councils had more than twice as many clean water projects as places with councils that were led by men. Tara? So there is evidence that links women's participation in these spaces with a focus on quality of life and on the priorities, yes, of women and girls and families, but also of racial and other minorities. And we know all this. It's globalized. We recognize it across the world. Like, we've come a very long way since, was it 1995, the Beijing Women's Summit, when we kicked off the enormous platform. And since that time, advocacy and funding for gender equality has really increased. Gender equality. Direct funding to organizations that are founded and led by women for women, however, this accounts for a very tiny fraction of the global development assistance that goes towards gender equality. In other words, women who convene women don't have it easy, which is why I find WeConvene so interesting. So Julia will set me straight, but in my work with WeConvene, what I'm looking forward to doing really is exploring, as she said, and sharing what's happening in this world of women coming together to lead, especially in the civic space. So as she says, the trends we're seeing now and the signals for what's around the corner, the opportunities and some of the really just, cool women's initiatives that are out there. So on those, if I draw on my recent work with the foundation, where, as we've said, we look at the Middle East. So one that comes to mind is the Mary Colvin Journalists Network, which was set up by friends of Mary Colvin after her death in Syria in 2012. It's an all-woman network. It connects local, often inexperienced female reporters based in conflict zones in the Middle East with experienced journalists for practical support, for training, for mentoring, and for psychological support, for counseling, which is so important when we remember that women journalists in conflict zones are incredibly vulnerable to violence and very often have no way of leaving the space they're in. So I think of this project as a really beautiful example of what convening women can offer. It helps to safeguard female perspectives in a powerfully patriarchal society. It ensures that female voices are clearly heard, far and wide, and working to drive it home, to really drive it home in the region and across the globe, that journalism is a profession with a really important place in it for women in the Middle East. That's one beautiful example that I'm familiar with. Another extraordinary initiative that we've worked with You may know this one, Women Now for Development, an organization set up by a super convener of women's groups in Syria well before the conflict started. And she built this organization with these women, centered around what those women's groups told her they wanted: empowerment. They focus on socioeconomic power and political representation. And today's Syria, these are brave, in some places groundbreakingly brave goals. And yeah, and a third is the Families for Freedom campaign. And this one's interesting for a bunch of reasons. I mean, it's a movement led by Syrian women who came together to stand against forced detention, torture, disappearance of over 100,000 Syrians, the majority at the hands of the Syrian regime. This includes protesters, doctors, aid workers. So one of the things I find so galvanizing about women together is that we tend to find each other, right? We build relationships, we actively seek ways to collaborate and to think together. So this organization, Families for Freedom, it links with others similar to it from across the world. Women in Black in Bosnia, the Mothers of Plaza del Mayo in Argentina. And so the support and the traction these women's groups are able to lend each other, I think really helps to light the dark, long road that they're traveling and to really amplify their message to the world. So on initiatives, I mean, that's a tiny window into the region that I work with, and just that region. But all around the world, as you know, women are bringing women together to train, support, protect, inspire. There's so much to talk about. Like, for example, the changes in the ways that women are accessing funding these days. And for example, did you know that women are much better crowdfunders than men? Women-led funding collectives, new financial mechanisms that are being designed to catalyze private investment into women-led social enterprises. Really exciting stuff, very new. Some of the newer women-led social innovations are being developed all around the world: Canada, Italy, Morocco, Lebanon. I'd like to talk about how women leaders around the world came to occupy their leadership positions. What role do women play in supporting each other to step forward into the civic space? What do women-led convening movements like World Pulse or Aspire really offer to women and the world? Let's find out. Anyway, as WEConvene progresses, I will be attempting to apply a wider and more global lens, but mainly I'd like to make sure that I'm directed by everyone here, that I'm bringing you the kind of information that you are interested in hearing. So as Julia says, do please be in touch on the group, and we will work together to make this what it can be. And that's me.
Thank you very, very much, Maria. What's the biggest global funding body for women?
I mean, undoubtedly, the biggest global funding body is going to be UN Women. But UN Women, as we know, has a tendency to do what the UN often does and fund large organizations and institutions rather than directly funding local organizations. But there are some really fantastic women's collectives that are large and are doing some great work, and I'd be happy to post some of those in the group later.
I think that'd be really, really interesting. That would be really, really interesting. And what about the sort of the grand foundations of the world? Which are the ones that you think are the sort of global foundations?
The big ones
that are really doing innovative stuff?
So I really like OSF for this, surprisingly, to perhaps even myself in this context. They put a lot of money recently into that. I like Sigrid Rousing. I love the Oak Foundation. They're flexible, interesting, and very, very women-oriented from my perspective, at least. There are a couple of others that, again, I can post who've got some really good background and some really great history in being open to interesting sorts of work around women convening and women bringing their resources together. So I can share those too.
Maria, you gave us that beautiful stat around. Give me another stat that you think everybody's going to use in the speech for the next month.
You were really putting me on the spot.
Give me one that's caught your imagination, an interesting statistic.
Well, I really like.
Morning, I tell you what, Uber, when they launched, because it was only men designed their platform, didn't put in a safety button. And it was only when they got women involved in the design they suddenly said, oh, they should have a safety button.
That's a really good one, and I wasn't aware of it. I mean, off the top of my head, I'm going to go back to the crowdfunding one for a second, because I found it a really interesting thing when I was doing a little bit of reading around on this, specifically because I was looking for, as you say, cases. I was particularly interested to find that while women are significantly better crowdfunders than men are, and that something like a quarter of all campaigns started by women on crowdfunding platforms actually are completely funded, compared to something like 16%, I think it was, for men, which is significantly smaller. The vast overwhelming majority of crowdfunders, of course, are men. And we're talking about crowdfunding in the sort of social enterprise kind of space. So yeah, I mean, there are gaps there that would be fun to poke around in and explore a little further. And that will be one of them, I think.
Maria, we're going to come back to you on the WEConvene group. We're inevitably with loads of questions. Over to you, Tara. Tell us about the project you're doing and all the knowledge you brought to it.
Thanks, Julia. Lovely to be here. Excited to be here. 10 years of working with women, working with rural women in Karnataka, India, and convening them has given me a lot of understanding of how things work on the ground and what really motivates women to come together. I'm still learning, even after a decade. And the project that we're doing in a village called Baburu in Karnataka, it's a small space, a small village with around 300 households. And what we're trying to do there, what we're trying to experiment there, is to convene women in the civic space, yes, but also to urge them to claim the space more. In India, there is a decentralized governance structure that is available where you have Gram Sabhas, meaning village councils, where women can go and participate. So on the supply side, the government has already given a forum for you to go and do it. But sadly, only 7% of the women go and participate. So our endeavor was to see, firstly, let's ask the right questions. Our step one was to say, let's ask the right questions. What are the questions that we need to ask? The questions we asked was, how involved is the woman currently with her local governance? What is the political awareness of any woman in an average village? And what is really deterring her from being involved? And what revealed was that women actually consider being part of the civics as a male domain. They think it's all politics. So it's not their domain to get involved. And though they are the ones who are getting impacted the most, whether it's concerned with safety, with water, with schools, they are the ones who are walking kilometers to carry water. But at the same time, they are not involved, like you rightly said, they are not involved in designing the policy which affects them the most. So our endeavor in asking these questions and understanding was to see if we can nudge these women forward to go into these spaces more. And it has to be done in a way that is, I know it is uncomfortable, but at the same time, it has to be comfortable enough for them to take the first step. So we went around this process of creating a hypothesis, doing a lot of on-ground research, online research. And finally, our theory of change is that if we build the civic muscle of the women, and if there is more civic participation by the women, then there is a positive impact on social equity. And you rightly said it in terms of water, in terms of what Maria said, in terms of the public goods being actually used in an appropriate way, in a way that has to be used for the betterment of the community, happens much more when women are part of it than women are not. So to give us a sense of the timeline that we did in the last 1.5 years, we unfortunately started and immediately COVID struck. But then, of course, we could do a lot of research because of that. Since I also have the experience of a decade on the ground, we could still get in touch with the women over phone calls, finding the influencer on the ground and finding those answers that we needed was also possible. So we did research the first 6 months of last year. Then we came up with our theory of change, the pedagogy, the rubric, and also curriculum design and change management process. One of our teammates keeps saying that we should stop calling this training and curriculum because everybody thinks, oh, it's just like, just sitting them and telling them something. It is not. There is much more to it. It is about building the knowledge, skills, and giving the right tools for them to feel comfortable, to actually go ahead and engage with the local governance process. So to give a sense of this village and the 50 women that we are engaging with right now, about more than 60% of them are actually above the age of 40. So that's another question I keep getting, saying, hey, why not engage more with the younger women? Why not engage more with the youth in the village? So the thing is, if you look at the cultural context in India, a lot of women in their 20s are very busy with their domestic life. It could be that they're just married, they're just getting adjusted to their new surroundings. As you know, in India, they get married and they move village. They go into the village where the husband's family is. And once they go there, they're still finding their feet in terms of what is the culture of this family, what is the food that they eat, how do I adjust? And the second is, a lot of them also give birth during this period of time, which is in their 20s, which means that they have lesser time, lesser inclination to actually get involved in the civic space, because they're very, very involved in their family space right now. So I would actually say there is nothing, I know that the young are the ones who are going to take this into the future, but it is important that we get also the right attitude and the women who are in that mind space for them to get involved. And that we find, and which is proven also for us, is that more than 60% of the women are above the age of 30 or 40. Education-wise, more than 20% of these women actually are so-called not formally educated. Of course, they're educated because they've grown up in families and they're differently educated, but the formal education is not there. I would say almost 40% of these women have not even crossed 5th grade. But why I'm saying all this is because I need to tell you about what really happened on the ground. So to tell you that 50% of these women actually said, we have no idea what happens. We don't know what these government schemes are. What is really our rights? We don't understand this. All this came out of our baseline study. And we did a baseline with 100 women in 2 very similar villages. And we decided we'll do a control group of 50 and a treatment group of 50. The whole RCT mechanism, just to understand. For the short term, for the first year, let's say, we said, let's do this and understand, and also be able to actually project to the world and also to donors that this works. Because that's one of the questions that everybody asks, right? Will this really work, and what's going to come out of it? So that's why we decided to do the RCT mechanism. 70% of the women actually, of the 100, actually said that they find it difficult to get local facilities taken care of. And for us, that was a shock, because obviously the local facilities involves your road, your street lights and things like that. And if 70% of them are not able to do it, which means that also they're not engaged with the process. So we went about this process of doing these short sessions with them, getting the 50 women in the treatment group to come together. As it is, they come together in self-help groups. These are called SHGs in India. They come once a week together, or once in 2 weeks. It's up to the village, they decide that. And they actually save money together. These are these affinity groups that are already there. So we are capitalizing on a group that is already thick, that is already available. There is a peer connection already there. So we capitalize on it, we mobilize them, and we said, every time you come together, anyway you're coming together, can you also sort of speak with us for 45 extra minutes? Can we talk about what's going on in the civic space? Let's just understand things better. And given that with the 10 years of work we've done, we have the trust in these villages, the women were willing to come together. And please believe me, this is 8:30 a.m. on a Sunday morning that they're coming together. Okay? It is a Sunday because that's the day when the kids don't go to school, so it's easier for them to come together. But for them to give that commitment, and they have consistently come for the past 3 weeks. So we have had this every 2 weeks. So 3 sessions they've come together at 8:30 in the morning. And what we're trying to do there is to simplify, not to make it cognitively heavy. It is not abstract. It is real life, to say, okay, if you have a problem, how would you resolve it? At home, how do you resolve it? What is the muscle that you use at home? Can you use that same muscle in a civic space? The same energy that you spend with your family, with your children, with your husband, with your in-laws to solve problems at home, can you use the same techniques, and can you transport it into a civic space and use it? And in that process that we did along with them, as I said, 3 sessions have happened of 45 minutes each, 45 minutes to an hour each. On August 8th, we had done a session with them. And I have to talk about the win that we have, right? On August 10th, they get together, they go to their village council member So every council has members in it, and one of the members is living in their village. They go to this house and they've handwritten, the women who could read and write. And out of these 50, I need to tell that number as well. Out of these 50 women, there are 3 women who can actually read and write and who have also got a bachelor's degree. Okay. And these women are also in the age group of somewhere 20s, 30s. So there is one 20 to 30, 30 to 40, and one in 40 to 50. Okay. They write their petition and they go to this local council member and say that we don't have a ration shop in our village. A ration shop is a public distribution shop set up by the government where they can get groceries at a subsidized level. The government and also gives them free rice or lentils or sugar. So every month this changes, or every time the policies change, this also changes. So this ration shop that they call the public distribution shop is not there in their village. They are having to walk 4 to 5 kilometers for it. And every time they go to the next place where this 4 to 5 kilometers away shop, they lose a day's wage. And when they go there, the first time they go, they have to register their name, put their thumbprint or their signature, and come back. When it comes, again, they have to go back and get it. So they said, we lose 2 days' wages and we have to walk 4 to 5 kilometers for this. It'll be easier if we get it in our own village. So these women get together. They go to this council member with a written petition. And he says, no, it can't be a written petition. It has to be typed out. I can't give this petition to the government. How does it work? So they tell him that, why don't you type it out for us, because we don't know to type. So he gets it done. They pursue him every day, ask him, is it done? Can we do this? And then they sign it. And the council member actually on the 16th session, when we had the session on 16th, he came back saying that I've taken your petition, I've actually given it to the government office, and they have sealed and signed it saying, yes, we've received this. We are thrilled. It is beyond thrilled to know that within like 10 days of a small change management process that we've done, of course, we've gone, blood, sweat, everything has gone into it for 1.5 years. But then to see this result, and I've not seen this, in a decade of my social work, I have not seen this kind of turnaround time happening. I feel it is because, one, the timing is right. They are ready for this. And because of the pandemic, there has been a lot of suffering. People have gone through a lot of suffering that now, when they get that last nudge to say, hey, this is what you can do. These are your tools. This is how you can engage. They immediately say, you know what? This is what we have. We should do this. And by the way, the leader of this group, the woman who has actually gone ahead and mobilized them saying, we should do these things, girls, is a 65-year-old woman, Lakamba. She said, I've suffered all this all my life. For once, we have an organization here who's coming all the way and telling us these are the tools, this is how we can do it. If they can come all the way and do it, can't we walk a kilometer to the council's house and actually get it done? And they've done it. So the pride that I have, and I'm really proud to share this with this group, is, yes, there has been a lot of work that's gone into it, but the results have been amazing. And what I feel I can share out of what we've done is, one, doing it at their doorstep is very, very critical. We went to their doorstep. That's why they were able to come at 8:30 in the morning, because they just had to walk probably 300 meters to come to this meeting that we had. The second is the tools have to be really, really simple. It has to be close to home. It was about this ration shop for them. It's not about, can you get elected? Can you go to the House of Commons or the House of Lords? It's not about that. It's about saying, what do I need every day and how can I get it done, right? And I feel, and I hope, and I wish that with these small wins that they have in the small run, eventually, I dream that they will be the councillors in these villages, that they will stand for elections, because they'll say, okay, we have got this first step done. Maybe becoming a councillor and maybe owning the civic space much more, or ruling the civic space, is not that difficult. Thank you. Thank you for the space to share this. Thank you, Julia. Thank you.
We all send our love. Oh,
thank you.
Tara. Oh, that makes you feel wonderful. Right. So now people are allowed to write in the chat if they've got questions. We're going to stop for about 2 or 3 minutes. And if you would write any questions or thoughts or suggestions or anything in the chat, then Uttara's going to read them. And then just choose a few of them, Uttara, to answer if you possibly can. Welcome, Isata. Delighted to see you.
Thank you. Glad I made it.
I can see you're in a car, poor you.
I parked. So I left the location. I just had the chat, the talk with the students, and I just drove somewhere where the internet looks a little bit stable, and I parked.
Fantastic. Uttara, can you see any questions coming in?
Well, firstly, Supriya, thanks a lot, Supriya. Thanks a lot. And I hear that you've written that you've worked with Oak Foundation projects before, and they are really women-oriented. Maria, she says that. And Leah asked what sort of commitment is joining WEConvene. Do you want to take that, Julia?
No, we're not going to do that yet. We're concentrating on your
Not
project
yet.
for now.
Okay.
Tell me about why it's so important. So you reckon that everybody says you've got to work with young people, and you're shouting, don't fall for that.
Julia, sorry, your voice got cut. Can you please repeat?
I think one of the things you were saying that I thought was so interesting is just because everybody says you should be working with young people, they're not necessarily right.
Yes, that's what I believe.
Yeah.
It is. And I think I am losing out on a lot of funding because a lot of funding is available to work with the youth. But the demographic here that we're talking about is rural women. And among rural women, from what I've learned in the past 10 years is that women who are older seem to be in a better place, better mind space also to be able to take this and also having the confidence to go and take it further. So I do believe that we have to, well, let me put it this way. We have to work with all. Okay, there's no question. Everybody has to be part of the space. But personally, I believe that given that 50% of the population is women, and given that our focus is also working with women, it is the right age group in that is the middle-aged women. It'll be great to hear comments. Well, none yet, but it'll be great to know others' opinions as well. Would be love to, not just questions, even comments are welcome. What do you think? Maybe sharing some experiences.
I have a question for you, Tara. You've probably heard this one before, but what has the male response been to all the action that's being taken by the women in the village these days?
I think I'm working in a slightly better geography, which is South India. Most of the time, they are welcoming it. I think it's also about how we project it, right? So one of the things we do in our sessions, what I believe in is also, rather than confronting it, it's about influencing the opinion of the men. Because the moment so if you look at it this way, if you go and shout at the top of your voice and say that you're all wrong, it's because of you that we're suffering and we're struggling, I think it has a very confrontational tone to it. If you actually sit with them and say, hey, can we have a dialogue? Can we have a conversation? Because we're really struggling with something. I think showing your vulnerability is also very powerful. And that is a tool that I think is getting missed. It's not getting used as much because it's seen as a power struggle. And I feel that it's the enemy. We are looking at the wrong enemy here. Men are not the enemy in this, right? It's the system and the structures and what we have put up, which is the problem. And I would say men are struggling as well in this. So how can you co-opt them and influence them? And that's the thing that happened in this also, right? In Baguru village, it was a male member who was the counselor. And when they went and spoke to him and they started following up with him every day, he actually appreciated it. He said in this forum, when he came back and spoke, he said, I appreciate that you came and told me because I didn't know that you were suffering. I didn't know that you were struggling with this and this is what you needed. we need people, we need women to get involved in the process, is what he has said. So which is also good. Sometimes it also happens. There are budgets available, there are schemes available, but I'm not sure that it is getting, they are not really thinking through where do we spend this, how do we spend this. So I feel that it will be, I don't think it is us versus them at all.
Great. It's good to hear. Thanks.
Thank you.
I see some comments have come in.
Yeah.
You choose which ones you want to answer, Tara.
Yeah. Somebody talks about how, I can't see the name here, it says LinkedIn user. She's talking about, she's trying to do something with unpaid caregivers, as they're often women and feel disempowered. And she's hoping to do something along with them. Fantastic. Whoever that is, I didn't see your name, but all power to you, all strength to you to be able to do that. And it'll be amazing to have you as part of the conveners group. Yes, the other question somebody asks is, I'm sorry, I don't pronounce your name. Begona? Maybe Maria can help me with the pronunciation of this name. Yeah. She asks about, are there places which are more accepting of the women exercising power and influence? I think similar to what Maria asked. Yes, I feel yes. South India especially is a little more progressive when it comes to that. And I think it is more accepting. Okay, it's Raj Gill Harrison, who a coach and an advocate, who's the one who's mentioned about that. Great, thanks. Yes, I do know about the Barefoot College and the work that they do about the solar mamas and how they are working with them. It is a fantastic initiative, and I think they've done great in even disseminating it. It's not just confined to them, they're actually empowering other organizations and other people to do the same thing. They train grandmothers. Yes, it's a fantastic initiative. I think they're also moving into the civic space, Barefoot College. Now they're more in the economic space, but I've been in touch with them and they are also moving into the space where saying, can women be more involved in their communities rather than just being selling solar or maintaining solar? There is much more power in the groups that are there in the villages. Would love to expand, Supriya, would love to expand and looking for more leaders to take it further. Telling the truth, I think in my lifetime, I have enough work to do in one state, which is Karnataka, because of the population that we have and the expanse of this country. Would love it if somebody else can expand it in the north. Yes, it will be very challenging, but I do believe that nothing is impossible. It is very possible to do this. Again, coming back to what I just told to the question that Maria asked, if we can come from the place of having dialogues and conversations and not really picking a fight, I think it is possible to do. We should connect more, Supriya, and seeing how we can take this to other parts of the country.
I have a question for you, Tara. May I? While we're waiting for others to post their questions. Sure. I'm wondering, I love how you describe the sort of change management process as you go in, you sit down and you say, how do you solve these problems in your own space? And then how do we translate those problem-solving skills so that they apply to the civic space? There's a beautiful simplicity and a beautiful kind of a sort of something really nice and visceral about that, right? I'm wondering whether you have kind of pinned this down as a sort of methodology that could be shared with others. Is this the sort of thing that would be possible to roll out across your country, maybe across the world?
Yes, definitely.
Get excited
definitely.
about it? Yeah.
I think so, definitely, because I realized that before, when in the initial stages of when I used to convene women, there were a lot of abstract things I would talk about, right? And they would nod their head and say, yeah, we understand. Yes, we'll do it at home. Yeah, great, and all that. But they could never translate that into the real life. And I realized that if you do it the other way around, saying, okay, how do you milk a cow now? The cow is rude, right? And it's going to run away. How do you do it? What do you think then? What's the power I think it's about that inner strength you have to reach into.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you find that power? How do you manage it at home? Yeah, you have a difficult circumstance, but you're doing something right. So the same thing Imagine that power. I mean, I'm going to give a very a different example altogether. I hear this with an organizing expert called Marie Kondo. She talks about the spark, the joy, right? And she says it's not easy. You can't just say that. But the first thing you do is you take out something that you really love, okay? And when you hold it, you'll feel something. You'll feel the joy. Hold on to that joy, hold on to that feeling, and then go to declutter something else. Because then you will know, am I getting that same feeling here? Right? I would say it's something like that you have to reach inside to feel that power.
I see that. I see that. Is this something that you could train others in? I mean, that's kind of the real question, right? I mean, you take something, you apply it to your context, and it works as beautiful. I mean, honestly, I was getting little shivers. Like, I love your story, and I love your story of success. And, you know, applying it to your context has to be about the context, just as you say, because what you're talking about really is that, right? You're talking about connecting and really kind of intimate, detailed contextualization. So while that's not something that can necessarily be done by anyone other than the people in that space themselves, is there kind of a broader methodological like approach that could be shared? And then, you know, what do you think?
Of course, Maria. I think what I just shared, I've already shared what is done, and to say more, I would say I keep saying that I'd like to be the midwife. If Isata wants to deliver this in Sierra Leone, I'm more than happy to be the midwife to sort of coax, coach, cajole, mentor, whatever that is called, and the person who's actually doing it will know the context. They will know what is the story on the ground and what is that will resonate with the women. And it's not difficult. I've already done it. Avantika Foundation is my second organization. I've already worked with, I am still working and leading Buzz Women. And we've done it in the Gambia, where the same approaches we took here, we've sort of transported it there. And there it was modified. They said, okay, here it's not the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship. Here it's more with the husband that the power struggle happens, right? Because every country, every state, every region is different. So they have actually done it. They just converted it. And in India, it's about, let's say, the thing that they spend most money is in tobacco. But there it is the green tea that they spend in. So we have to sort of change these examples on the ground. And sometimes it's just a matter of thinking again from on the ground, like bottom-up thinking that this will do.
I love the midwife.
Tara, I'm going to bring this bit to the end. I'm going to make a plea. I'm sure that people on WeConvene will ask you questions. And next call, we're going to have somebody else in your slot. But would you talk into your phone in about a month's time and update on this project and put it on WeConvene?
Of course.
What you've done over the last 25 minutes, would you do it again in a month's time? And we'll just shove it up. And then people, you know, next month you might say, it's been a disaster. Or you could have said, we've had an even bigger success. You know, it could be all kinds of things. It would be
very true. Yes, definitely we'll do that.
So if there are questions, put them in. Join WeConvene, put them on the thing, and Uttara will answer them. And by the sounds of it, she'll also share with the greatest of pleasure. So you can see why Uttara was a driving force of WeConvene, an amazing woman. That it has been a joy to know. So I'm now going to move on to, so we've done global, we've done community, now we do individual. Isata, now your job is to share all your dirty linen with us, okay? Share all your disasters with us. She's just disappeared already. Immediately I said that, she's gone offline.
Oh, technology.
She is absolutely guaranteed going to come back on because I have met Isata and I know how brutal she is. Whoever is in her car, she will make them make the internet work. So maybe let's just hold for about 20 seconds and see if she can come back on. I'm phoning her on WhatsApp at the same time. I think her internet's gone down. So therefore, Uttara, if I ask the same question of you, can you please share your dirty linen? What is a piece of leadership learning that you've learned personally the hard way over the last 10 years?
Well, I think one, more trust in myself. That's a leadership learning I've had. The way that I trust the women, the way that I encourage them, I realize that I'm much more critical of myself. And I keep telling myself I need to encourage myself as much as I encourage the women.
Hold for a sec. Say that again.
I'm trying to log back on.
Well, why don't I do that? Look. You can
Oh,
do it.
yes. Yay, we can see her.
Go on, Izata. Talk to us.
No problem at all. Thank you so much. And if I remember, I was asked to present on the difficulties or some challenge that I've been able to overcome during this leadership journey. And listening to Tara about working with women in rural areas, which is very much my own demographic that I work within, and her mentioning the small wins, I think my story really speaks to those small wins. And sometimes we don't pay attention to those details, the short-term goals, because we're so focused on the long vision. And the work of women, of course, it's absolutely, it's everything, and the data, the statistics in some areas, in some societies are not encouraging. And if you see those kind of data, you're wondering, why am I bothering? Why am I spending so much time and energy if there's no movement? And that kind of discouragement comes from us looking at the big picture without looking at the small shifts in the needle within those systems. For me personally, finding my voice is that small win. And when you think about the silence that we have been taught as girls, and we grow up to be women who are silent, we all realize the importance of finding our voice. Why we don't emphasize the greatness of that, because we're looking at it within the broader picture and thinking, if Isata finds her voice, that's just one person. How about the billions around the world that are still silenced? But locally, within my own perspective, if I can find my voice, I know I can help others to end the silence. When I'm usually in meetings and I'm the only woman, and I refuse to speak up because I feel uncomfortable, because I feel as if I need to do what they want me to do, which is to be polite, to be nice, and to be silent, it's a disservice to the work that we need to do as women. But me having the courage to speak up within that space is what gives another woman the permission to do the same. So the domino effect of a single voice is so important within this space, is so important within the work we do, that we really need to celebrate that. Working with rural women, as in Utara's case also, they're mostly lowly educated or not educated at all. And on the other end of the spectrum, I am mentoring girls in high school and university. And this is the future for sure. But even as we look towards them for the future, we need to consistently address the present. So the economic empowerment with women in rural spaces is what really allows them to find their voice. And I realize what that feels like, because I wouldn't have been brave enough to speak up, to be vocal, to be firm in the spaces that I occupy, if I didn't feel like I had the right education, I had the right background, or I had the right kind of experience for me to speak up. So for women living in rural areas, it's usually that lack of financial capacity, is so disempowering. Their voices are silenced even within their homes. And what I notice is that once they have a little bit of economic power, a little bit of economic independence, not only do they find their voice is permissible within their homes and within the communities, at a level of respect. So husbands respect women, respect wives who contribute to the home, who can actually help them to support the family. So economic empowerment is usually where we help women find their voices, and as she reported, they end up having more involvement within their civic environment as well. And for young girls and young women in university, we're very, very firm on them actually using their voice at this level and going for student level elections, for example, because we find those who are going for elections at school level, at university level, in 10 years, 20 years, will become your councillors, will become your members of parliament, and eventually will become those female presidents that we're looking for around the world. So female leadership, in real measure, starts with women finding their voices. And that silence that we are so familiar with, that we ourselves condone and continue to perpetuate, once we break that silence, I think that's where the power will come forth. I always talk about women now being the gatekeepers of certain cultures that marginalize and disenfranchise other women. We have become those prison guards of our own prisons. We, as women, are now ready to suppress other women. And finding your voice really releases you from that policing of other women's choices, from that policing of women who are seen not to conform, because once you become a woman who does not conform, you start looking for allies, and you then are in danger, real danger, of encouraging other women to do the same, and that's the kind of danger we want.
So wait a minute, let me have your leadership lesson in one sentence then, Isata.
The importance of a single voice in any space which you occupy cannot be overstated. And I think we should not underestimate the power of a single voice.
I'm speechless.
That's beautiful. I don't want to. How am I going to replace her? All I want to do is listen to you, Isata. I'm embarrassed to put you aside. Right, but I am going to be brutal. It's now, we're going to finish early just to surprise everybody. And we're going to say we've had a wonderful call. Maria, Utara, Isata, I love you all so passionately. But we should remember how lonely we all are, and how, your single voice then, Isata, has made Utara smile. That's what WEConvene is about. It's about your single voice causing the smile. I think she might even cry a bit in a minute, but it's just, that's what we have to do for each other, because if we do it for other women, we have to do it for ourselves. So thank you so much, Isata. These calls will happen once a month. Next time we'll loosely use this format because it's been pretty good. And then we'll evolve. I hope many of you will join us. The next call will not be an open call. The next call will be a closed call, just with the people who have become part of WeConvene. You know how to do that. It's a private group inside LinkedIn attached to my profile. And if in the next few hours you want to ask Maria a question, put a question in WeConvene. If you want to suggest an idea or steal an idea from Utara, then put it in WeConvene. And if you want to share your answer to that question, give us give us an example of leadership learning over the last 10 years that has been hard won for you. Share your one of that. Other than that, we will all see each other in a month's time on the 3rd Wednesday in September, which I'm pretty sure is the 15th of September. I love you all. Drive very, very, very carefully, Azata. You are a precious single woman, a special single woman. Uttara, you will update us into your phone on that amazing project. And Maria, you'll have even more information to tell us. So thank you, everybody, for being part of this. I send you all my love.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Julia, for convening us. You're the
Thank
chief
you so much.
convener of us all.
Go, Julia.
Thank you for convening us all.
Trouble is, I'm being left-handed. There's Isata. Lots of love
Yes,
to
thank you,
everyone.
Isata.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Isata. That was so great. That was really amazing.
And
Okay,
see
bye,
you all
everybody. All the best. Take care. Bye, Tara. Bye, Julia.
Bye.